Writer, artist, designer, enterpriser. There's other things on the list too. Joanna Barbolla, thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
What or where do you find yourself the most when creativity strikes?
So I would have to say when I'm at a place of relaxation, when I'm at a place where I can absorb what's around me and be in my own kind of sanctuary. I think that's when I start to feel that creative juices flowing, when I'm surrounded by my art, when I look at my creations that I've already done. That inspires me. Going to museums inspires me. Anything creative will start getting my juices flowing, so to speak.
Where do you think creativity comes from?
That's a good question because nobody in my family is the least bit creative. I come from a very conservative family that doesn't really acknowledge art. So I don't really know. It's a really good question, and I question that a lot myself. I mean, I wish I could say to you I come from a long line of artists, but just going back into my lineage, I don't really see that. So I guess I am unique when it comes to that.
When you are creating art or writing or something like that, do you have times where you feel like you're maybe not channeling, but working as like an antenna for some sort of creative something? Or do you think it's all coming from just you?
I think a lot of his life experiences, maybe some of it comes from my travels abroad. Some of it comes from my experiences with art, with people, with other artists, with collaboration. All of that. I think it's just a sum of my life experiences and my daily meanderings. Where sometimes I'm just like a sponge and I can just absorb what's around me. And I think it just comes from that, really. And then I just tap into it.
What kind of place do you have set up to do your artwork and writing or other things like that?
Yeah, well, so the artwork was really, I am a New Yorker. I'm in Florida 3 years already, but all of my paintings, actually, the ones that I've created that are in my book, Divulge Divino, are from the painting that I did in New York in my apartment/studio. I set up a little corner in my living room by the window. I had a pretty nice sized living room, and I set up my huge easel and all of my books around me and all my inspiration, my paints, my palette knives were all around me. And that was where I used to paint back on Long Island, where I'm from. And then as far as my writing, a lot of my writing has been done right here in my apartment in Tampa, which is really my dining area that I can have a very large table. And I'm a single woman, so I only take up a little part of it. And the rest of the table is really for my writing and for all of the work I do. My work that I do remotely working for the National Organization for Women. I'm their social media manager. So I work from home and I do that here with my laptop and my teaching. Sometimes I do my lesson planning here when I'm teaching and tutoring. So everything is done right here in my apartment.
Do you do podcasting as well?
I have been on, I think you're number 10 where I've been a guest appearance promoting my book. So I've done a lot of podcast guest appearances, but no, I don't run a podcast. I would love to get into that at some point in my life, because I feel like I've had so much experience going on various podcasts and just, talking about my book and being interviewed and just that whole conversational flow that I've had with so many different podcasters. I would love to be able to eventually run my own podcast. Do you have any suggestions?
I guess the advice you always hear is if you're thinking about it, go ahead and do it, because
Yeah.
if all you do is just plan and plan and plan and never do it, then you're not going to learn those things you don't learn unless you're doing it. So
Mm-hmm.
it's definitely a process of when you start and you're like, okay, I'm ready to do this, and you start, and then after a couple, depending on the frequency of how often you do it, you do have these little things you learn every now and then you add to that, you add to it and kind of tweak what you're doing. But I guess one of the big things is knowing like a broad audience, but not so broad that it doesn't talk about something that you can write down and say, this podcast is about this. Like this
Mm-hmm.
is about creativity and content creation. That covers a lot of things, but it does narrow it down a lot from other stuff. And that doesn't mean you don't digress and talk about things, but I imagine if you do a lot of tutoring online, that's kind of like podcasting, because you're setting a time and date to talk to somebody. And that's basically all it is. You're just, the only difference is you're recording it, then you're publishing it.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm. Can I ask how you got started? I know this is supposed to be about Divulge Divino, but I would love to hear. Maybe your
yeah,
listeners want to hear too.
I was just thinking about, I listen to a lot of podcasts and I watch them too. So a lot of video podcasts like Joe Rogan, and I think Adam Carolla, and there's some other ones that you just, you kind of, you start listening to them and it's like you're having a conversation with somebody, but you're not there. You can't say anything. I mean, you might talk to yourself while you're listening to it, but it's a little different than music. If you're out doing some sort of task like gardening or cutting grass or painting or something, where your mind can get busy with this while you're doing something else. But I think the part of it was just wanting to talk to interesting people about creativity. And it's, I think face to face in person would be a better way to do it. It's a better conversation, but that's just not, it's not possible to talk to as many different people from as far away. You don't have money to fly people in and things. So if it were ever the case for that, certainly I would do it. But it's just talking to interesting people. That's the drive of it. And then just put that out there. What got you started with painting then, and the idea of making a book about wine and art?
Yeah, so the painting is an interesting story. I went to FIT New York and I studied marketing communications. Never did I take a drawing or painting class. And then in my early 40s, I took a couple of paint and sip classes and I really enjoyed it. And then I had some time off of work. I used to work in New York City. And I took some time off and I went to a couple of different classes at an art league and I really enjoyed it. And I was getting some pointers and I said to myself, there's really no class for abstract art because it's all about expressionism. So I said, I am going to start to do this on my own and see where it leads me. So I went out to one of the art stores. I picked up a big easel and a bunch of blank canvases, and I just started. And one painting a month turned into one painting a week, and then a couple of times a week. And then for a while, I was painting every day. And the more I did it, the more techniques I came up with and I discovered, and I did some research on LinkedIn and on Facebook and YouTube about different techniques. And I'm very self-taught. And I found that the more I painted, the better I became with my use of colors, brush strokes, movements and just the way it was just such a cleansing of the soul when I would paint. It was just such a feeling of letting go and releasing. And then that's when I designed an art therapy class, because that's really what I was experiencing. It was very therapeutic. And then when I came to Florida, I taught an art therapy class for students at USF, and I really, really enjoyed it. So that's really how it got started. Started really in New York, and then I just brought it with me. I brought my paintings with me, and I brought the whole that whole feeling of how can I create. And then with the wine reviews that are in Divulge to Vino, when I worked in New York City, I was there for 30 years as a high-level executive assistant, and I also had a side hustle. I used to run a wine and art group, a social business networking group that I grew my membership up to about 250 participants. And I used to plan really fun events. I used to plan wine tasting, wine picnics, wine dinners, and then once a year we do an annual trip to Europe. So the last trip was through Tuscany and the Italian Riviera, and we had a lot of fun with the wine and the art and everything else. But while I was running this wine and art group that was called Wine, Art, Etc., I started attending a lot of trade events, which I was invited to because I started this group. And I would go to them. I would take a personal day from work, or take a vacation day. And they were all mostly in New York City, where I was already. And I took so many classes, and I went to so many trade shows, and I just had this vast knowledge of wine from all different countries all around the world. And I said, I need to do something with this. I need to share this information that I have. So I started a wine blog, and I started submitting it on WordPress, and then sending it out to all my members in my wine group, and they loved it. So each week I would pick up another wine from another country, and I would write about it. So by the time I was done with my wine blog on WordPress, I had about 16 wine reviews. And then after a while, it was just getting too much, and I was very busy at work, and I just couldn't manage everything. So I stopped with the wine blogging, but I printed out all my wine blogs, and I had them. And I always said to myself, if I had more time, I would love to create a book with all my wine reviews. But I just didn't have the time. And then when I moved to Florida, my whole career changed, and now I'm in a second career in teaching and education, and I have much more time, much more flexibility. So I said, here is my time. This is my opportunity to finally do something with these wine reviews. So I did my research, and then I decided to self-publish it on Amazon, through Kindle Direct Publishing, but I also wanted to do something with my art, and I wanted to make it creative. So that's when I then decided to incorporate an image of my painting in each chapter. So so that's how this book was created, Divulge to Vino.
When you paint something, how do you come about with the idea of it? Is it something you visualized before? Are you thinking about an idea and then putting it down on the canvas or whatever the medium is, and like trying to tell a message about it? What's your process for creating the picture of art?
And there's really no particular process. It's with abstract expressionism, there's no rules. You really just it's just an extension of what you're thinking, what's going on in your life, the mood you're in, where you are. It's really, there's not a lot of planning. It's just coming out of what's going on currently, and that's how I release, and that's how I let go, and whatever I'm thinking, I'm feeling, I just put it on the canvas, and then I'm in my own kind of little world where, I'm adding colors. I only use a palette knife. I really don't use brushes. So it's really movement and colors and shapes and however it ends up, it ends up. And when I have ideas of whatever I'm doing, I find that the canvas takes on a life of its own. And then there is the finished product after, an hour or two of painting. And then I'm seeing, wow, this is how it turned out. And then sometimes I'll turn it around. If it's portrait, I'll turn it to a landscape and it's got a whole different look. And then I'll do a little here, do a little there. And then make some changes to it. And then I'll walk away for a half an hour or so and then come back to it. And it has a different look to me. Once you start painting and then you stop and then you walk away from it an hour, a day, and then you go back to it, it looks different. And especially if you turn it around, the colors look different sometimes. You just have a different feel for it. And it just feels different with the way you're looking at it and the emotions that come out when you're looking at it. So there's really no particular order. That's why I love it so much, because there's so much freedom with it. There's just so much letting go and freedom and no rules and no staying inside the lines and no steady hand. It's just all emotionism. And it's very freeing for me. And that's why I love it.
Do you use mainly oil then? If you're using
I
a palette
don't.
knife?
I started with oil and I was painting in my apartment. I was getting really bad headaches. And I love the consistency of oil. There's just so much you can do with oil. So then I decided to switch to acrylic and then use different techniques that add the thicker consistency to the paint. Sometimes I'll add paste. Sometimes I'll even add spackle to give it that 3D look. And it's less toxic than oil. But it still has that feel and that texture that comes from oil.
Does acrylic over time is it latex or acrylic that kind of goes away?
It doesn't go away. However, it does chip. Sometimes it chips off. And that really depends on how you're storing it. Like if you're storing them, against a wall and it's one on top of the other, it will stick together. So you have to be careful the way you store it, and especially with the temperatures too. But I have all my paintings in my apartment, so the temperature is always nicely air conditioned. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
I was going to say when I was bringing all of my paintings from New York to Florida, I probably should have packed them differently because there was some damage, which I'm disappointed about. But there's just so many paintings. I mean, I have about 200, maybe 250 that I sell online and I showcase when I can. So, yeah.
When you talk about a painting taking on a life of its own, does that mean that when you're making it, that when you're done or when you're done or when you think I'm going to stop working on it at this point, is it because the painting is becoming what the painting wanted to be, or is it to the point where your perspective is done affecting it?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think the painting has taken on its own feel and look, and if I feel at that point that I'm in agreement with what I see, then I stop. There are times where I feel like, well, maybe I need a little more color in this section, or maybe I need to lighten it up in this section. Then I'll start doing a little dabble here, a little dabble there. But it's like an inner voice that's telling me, okay, you're done. That's it. It's done. You're not going to get it better. It's not going to change in any way, shape, or form. And it's really my inner voice that's telling me when I feel like I'm finished.
When you look at a one of your paintings, do you remember what you were thinking when you made it,
Some of
or
them,
does
yeah.
it?
Some of
Okay.
them have a strong emotional feel to them, and then others, there's others I don't remember what I was doing, what I was thinking. However, my titles of my paintings are sometimes bring back memories of what I was thinking or doing at the time that made me create such a painting.
Do you listen to music or anything while you're painting?
Always music, and it's always world music. Hawaiian music, French music, Spanish music, Italian music. It's all foreign music that I listen to that gets me going. African music. Yeah, that's what gets me going.
So after you make your painting and then you decide that you're going to do a book about wine, do you think you pair the paintings with the type of wine or the writing in that part of the book?
Well, the paintings were done first, and then the writing
Mhm.
came after. So when I was incorporating my paintings into each chapter, I chose the paintings that I thought would match. Like for chapter 8, Bulgarian Blaze, I chose this painting because it just, to me, it looks like it's the perfect match. That, to me, that looks like a blaze, a fire with the reds and the orange and the yellows and the greens. So that's kind of, I kind of thought about the titles that I used in the chapters. Chapter 7, All That Glitters, is this painting that I used, and to me, that I feel like that's a perfect mesh that would go with what I spoke about with the wine. And so on and so forth. And then this is the cover, which is one of my absolute favorite paintings, the front and the back, because I wanted it to stand out. I wanted the book to be unique. I wanted the book to have style. I wanted the book to have color and warmth and passion, because that's how I feel when I paint. So I wanted it to reflect me as much as possible.
With abstract art, I didn't go to art school, but I took some art classes, and my brothers went to art school, and I've talked to a lot of painters. Do you with abstract art, do you find a way that you can describe a story in that painting? Like you can say, this to me means the struggle of humanity over nature, or are there elements in your paintings that you can describe like that? Are they all like that? Just some of them?
I would say they're all a reflection of me and the struggles maybe that I've had, or the happiness or the successes. It's really not about the world. I focus
Right.
more on my own emotionalism and what I was going through at that particular time, whether it was a happy time in my life, a congratulatory time in my life where I was celebrating a success of some kind, or a joy or a celebration. There were other times when I was going through some kind of struggle, some kind of adversity, and that came in my paintings. So really, I didn't really. It's very personal to me. The paintings. I didn't really go outside of myself, because for me, the painting for me is very self-fulfilling. It's something that I really enjoy, and that's why I never really, like once I started painting on my own, I really didn't enjoy going to art classes with other people and have other people around me painting, because to me, painting is such a private thing, almost like religion. To me, religion is a very personal, private belief. And with painting, I feel the same kind of thing where it's like, I will share my paintings once it's finished, but the whole process of the painting, what that I go through while I'm painting, is very personalized.
Do you have you had people look at them and say, this painting to me reminds me of this, or this, or I get
Mhm.
this from it?
Absolutely. They see shapes, they see faces, they see people, they see movement. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Some things that I haven't seen, other people have seen, or some things that I see in my paintings, like I'll see shapes or faces or whatever it may be, and I'll bring that to someone's attention, and they'll say, "Oh, I didn't even notice it." I said, "Well, if you look at it, if you're looking to the side, if you're lying down and you're looking up at the painting, you'll see something." And yeah, absolutely.
And do you think that art like that is a way that some other connection with something else beyond us is it speaks to us?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I can give you a perfect example. I was painting, I was doing a lot of yellow in my painting, and um, I was thinking of a time in my life when I was very close to my grandfather. Um, and I named, and they were in Florida. And that's one of the reasons why I came to Florida. When I was young, I would visit them, and it was my second home in Hallandale Beach. And my grandfather always talked to me about Okeechobee. And I was thinking of him at the time, and um, painting and using my very bright Floridian colors. And I named the painting Okeechobee. And I felt like he was speaking to me. I really did. I felt like there were things that I figured out and things that came to mind that I didn't think of before. And I felt like he was with me. Um, and he was almost like guiding me through what I was thinking and what I was painting. It was a very spiritual moment for me.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it when, as I said, didn't go to art school, but abstract art, I had always thought I don't get it. And then one day, a person that made abstract art explained one of their pieces to me, and I was like, wow, wow,
Mhm.
there are, and it didn't sound like something where you throw some paint against the wall and then you just, pontificate on something. It sounded deliberate and real. And I was thinking that's pretty great. And then the idea that a piece of work like that can talk to someone else and say something totally different and be just as good an explanation. I was like, oh, okay, there's something to this art thing, that it's not just people recognize faces because maybe that's how people survive, is they see shapes and certain things in things. That's just their survival technique or whatever. But I did it did make me more interested in art and painting and abstract. And then I started thinking more about how, when you open yourself up to it, like, I am not a person that can do portraiture, or I'm not a trained artist, so I don't draw well, but I can put different shapes and lines on a paper, and to me it means something, and it kind of speaks to something inside of me, or some sort of realm of creativity where I can think, oh, there's some emotion in that, there's some memory there. And then
Mhm.
other people can look at it too and say, yeah, okay, that's good. That doesn't mean that every piece is like that, but I think of, with writing, I did one time that was just lines, and it was story arcs. And you have a character story arc that starts and goes, and that to me was a certain color, and then a different character's story arc was a different color, and then this other story starts in the middle of it, so it ends up with these different lines in different heights and links and depths. And when I look at it, I see the story now, just because I've thought about it so much. And
Mhm.
then to someone else, it could look something totally different. But I do appreciate the abstract more and how it can fit in to things. So
Yeah.
when you were deciding to make a use it in a book and you published on KDP, how did you like that process of KDP?
At first it was a little bit of a struggle until I figured out how to do the the editing and the illustration and the size. It really wasn't too difficult at all. It was like I said, self-taught, and it kind of walked me through it. And when I remember I was so excited when I got the box in the mail of my copies. I was like, oh my God, look how pretty came the art, the paper they used. I was so excited. I really was. And the way the colors came out, the print, um, the paintings are so vibrant in the book. It's really, they look so fabulous, and I'm so excited. So yeah, I mean, it's like my baby. This is my first book, this is my baby. So besides my beautiful kid Enza, my rescue, who's the original baby of mine, this book is my second baby.
How did you choose the size of your book and the paper and cover, like the material for it?
I really just went with what I thought looked good when I was able to see the proof.
Okay.
I chose this size because I thought this would be a good size for a paperback. Um, and I just kind of, like I said, it kind of prompts you along, and then you get to see the
Mhm.
proof while you're doing it. And I just felt like this was the perfect size.
Yeah, I like the KDP process. I've done
Mhm.
a self-publishing, my first book in 2014, 2012, 2014 timeframe. And that was interesting to go through that process. I haven't been through one where a publishing house says, "We love your book. We're going to take care of everything." That
Mhm.
hasn't happened. And I think I like the ability to control things like on KDP a lot better, where you
Yeah.
can pick the size of it. You can
Mhm.
do the art on the binding. You can do the art for the whole cover. You don't have to use their things, but you
Yes.
can use their formats if you want. And it's and then the print on demand part of it is pretty great. And
Mhm.
a lot of it gets printed in the US. So I like that as well, as you get
Mhm.
it depending on where you order it, whether it gets printed East Coast, West Coast, they have a couple different printing houses.
Yeah.
And then the ease of being able to change things or make corrections if you need to, it's pretty great. There
Yes,
is a learning
that's
curve though.
fantastic. I love that too, because I did make some changes once I published it. I noticed, oh, maybe I left something out. Maybe I should change the
Mm,
wording. So then I went back, and then I waited the 24 hours or whatever for it to
yep.
show live, and then I ordered more copies. And I love having that flexibility. I love that there's no upfront costs, and I'm in the driver's seat for all the advertising and the promotion. I can use their promotion. I can do my own. I can do both. You are in the driver's seat, and you're the one with the control. And that's what I loved about it.
Yeah, it's pretty great. I've used it for a few books and
Yeah.
I really like the process of it.
Hmm.
With your so your book is available on Amazon KDP or
Uh-huh.
Amazon, and
Yeah.
it does look well, even look good, even over the camera. Like you can see the cover and then the pictures in there. That's good for an art book, and it seems like a good size for it too.
Hmm.
What what as far as your writing and your art, what do you think makes your particular style your style?
So I think the name Divulge Divino is catchy. It's creative. It's Italian. It just I think the uniqueness of it, the fact that it's such an easy read, it's done in a very, very witty conversational tone. I feel like I'm right there with the reader having a conversation, talking about wine, getting emotional and getting passionate. I think all of that comes into play with the uniqueness of it and why somebody would want to purchase it. You know, if they don't know all that much about wine, they have a guide that they can use and that will help them. That's done very easy to understand. I'm not a wine snob by no means, so it's just really it gives you ideas on wines and what to pair them with, and you know, and if you want to try a red at a reasonable price, if you want to try a white, a rosé. The whole premise of the book is to find a good valued bottle of wine for $25 and under. So you're not, you know, you're not robbing the bank, you're not going bankrupt. And it's really for the down to earth average person that wants to know about wine and learn in a really fun, entertaining way.
Where is there a place where people can follow your artwork so they can get your book on Amazon, and can they buy your
Yeah,
paintings or look at your paintings somewhere?
absolutely. Absolutely. So I am on Instagram. That's where all of my paintings are under the name Art Reflections Design. I also have an Etsy page under Art Reflections Design, and I have a Threadless page under Art Reflections Design that has my home products and accessories. So all of those three websites, you will find me under Art Reflections Design. And then, of course, I have an author's page on Amazon for Divulge Divino. And then I have a Twitter page for Divulge Divino and a TikTok page for Divulge Divino.
Okay. I have those links and they'll be in the show notes if people didn't get a chance to write them down, and they'll just be a link you can click on and go to it. But all of those are there.
Fantastic.
Is there anything else you wanted to talk about that we didn't? I know you have a time constraint. So, or any other thoughts in closing?
Really just, I would say if you love wine or if you want to learn about wine and not want to spend a lot of money and get a good value wine and get some ideas on what to pair them with, and then look up Divulge Divino on Amazon. It's available in paperback and Kindle.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your time. And as I said, all those links will be in the show notes, and I'm sure they can get in touch with you if they're interested in any of your artwork.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks for being here. I'll talk to you on the other side of this. Okay.
Very good. Thank you.
All right.